baby, hey baby, look what you've done to me. Look what you've done to me. Still maybe, you could be good for me, and I could be good for you too. Yeah, yeah. I didn't wanna get there so fast. I really try to take it so slow. Hey baby, don't you know what I feel for you? Don't you know it's the only truth, yeah. I can't take it, you're burning a hole for me. I wish you could only see what I see, yeah. I didn't wanna get there so fast. I really try to take it so slow. The things I wanna say, they get choked up inside of me once again. And all that I wanna do is get through to you and be with you tonight. Hey baby, look what you've done to me. Nickel top, look what you've done to me. Still maybe, you could be good for me, and I could be good for you too. Yeah, yeah. I didn't wanna get there so fast. I really try to take it so slow. The things I wanna say, they get choked up inside of me once again. And all that I wanna do is get through to you and be with you tonight. I should have known your darkness, saw through your blatant masquerade. But I stayed. I know it's me that faltered. I couldn't bear to walk away. The things I wanna say, they get choked up inside of me once again. And all that I wanna do is get through to you and be with you tonight. The things that I wanna say, they get choked up inside of me once again. And all that I wanna do is get through to you and be with you tonight.
He took 100 pounds of clay, and then he said, hey, listen, I'm gonna fix this world today, because I know what's missing. Then he rolled his big sleeves up, and a brand new world began. He created a woman and lots of loving for a man. Whoa, yes he did. With just 100 pounds of weight.
Where's Mike?
He made my life worth living, and I will thank him every day for every kiss you're giving, and I'll thank him every night for the arms that are holding me tight. And he did it all with just 100 pounds of clay.
In real life.
yes, he did. Oh, yes, he
Okay,
did.
so we're not on yet.
seconds.
Okay, 40 seconds.
Now
We'll be live.
can't you just see him walking around and round, picking the clay up off the ground, doing just what he should do to make a
We'll introduce all of us.
living dream like you. He rolled his big sleeves up and a brand new world began. He created a woman and lots of loving for a man. Oh, yes, he did with just
100 pounds of clay. And you're probably wondering why KXFM Radio on this Thursday evening is playing 100 pounds of clay, because it's very appropriate with the guests we have this evening. Good evening from KXFM Radio here in Laguna Beach. Tonight, we reintroduce listeners from two longtime and well-known Laguna residents, combining their skills in landscape, architecture, and ceramic art to highlight community identity, definitely, by creating a unique sense of place around the globe for residents and visitors alike. Our in-studio guests are Bob Borthwick. Say hello, Bob.
Hello.
A little louder.
Hello.
This will be our sound check. There we go. And Marlo Bartels.
That's me over here.
Oh, there's Marlo.
Hey.
whose work separately and together include local, regional, national, and international projects, which we want to discuss because that's everywhere.
Right.
Nothing is left out in that. Bob Borthwick is a landscape. Everyone knows Bob. I don't know. Is a landscape architect who brings communities together, designing many parks and public projects in his career, which we know well. These include the Avalon downtown waterfront on Catalina Island and the San Clemente Beach Trail and the Crystal Cove, many, many others. Bob worked closely with Laguna Beach with artist Marlo. Hi, Marlo. Bartels, I'll get it right. On the Avalon and San Clemente projects, Marlo has received numerous awards, including 3 National Endowment to the Arts. His work is iconic in Laguna. Together, he and Bob have created fountains, benches, I know the benches, kiosks, and decorative tile signage, and their combined projects have received awards regionally and nationally. Welcome to both of you, Bob and Martel. And I'm going to turn it over here to our fabulous hostess, Leah Vasquez.
Thank you. I think we have to let people know. Normally, Craig never misses a beat, but today he just got out of a seeing eye doctor, and he couldn't read too well, so we'll have to excuse any blunders.
Thank you, Leah.
He's always so fabulous.
But the good thing, they said my eyes are fabulous.
Well, your eyes are fabulous, but right now you're still recovering from the stuff they put in it.
This is
as
true.
We all did. If I had only known. But anyway, we're not to worry. We're casual. And of course, we're here with 2 of the most iconic people in our city who have done so many beautiful things. And we're going to talk to them tonight. So if you want to call in out there, please do. We welcome Craig. Let them know what number to call. This is artwalking.art, and it's sponsored by the Laguna Beach Beautification Council.
Our request line is 949-715-5636. That is 949-715 or 5936. Sorry, 5936. Don't get that wrong. And we'll have the mic turned on for that. So when you call in, you'll probably just go live. So be careful.
I've been talking to a number of people about this show. One was from the Laguna Beach Historical Society. Nelda Stone was a librarian. She was very excited about it. Hopefully she'll call in. We had a great interest from the Catalina Tile people from the PR department, but unfortunately their event didn't coincide with, tonight, and they have people on vacation too. So
we'll have other people probably calling in. And if not, they can certainly catch up with this program. If they have to go someplace, they can get it on artwalking.art. Craig, would you tell people how they would grab hold and when they can get the podcast? Because this will go live to how many people? Thousands?
It's global. It's who knows?
It's global. We never know. We've gotten calls from New York and different things like that. And people who listen really love to chime in. If you have any questions, you're a student, or if you're a professional, we have some interesting dialogue. And if you have anything that you would like to ask our guests, either Marlo or Bob, please call in. And the number once again is
949-715-5936.
Thank you.
And also the podcast you can catch on artwalking.art. It will be posted by tomorrow noon at the latest. It may be before that.
Given the weather.
Boy, and is it blustery out there. I hope Catalina Island doesn't get blown away. It is just crazy.
It is.
But anyway, so that you can listen to it. If you miss a portion of it or you want to share it with someone, you can go there and share it. So that is on our podcast that's listed on. And also, which we are streaming live tonight on YouTube, and that is under artwalking.art. So you can look for artwalking.art, and you can actually see our guests behind the microphones and communicate with them. Or that's the deal. So
okay, that's great. Well, welcome to you both, Bob.
Thanks, Leah.
And to Marlo.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. And Bob's been on before. And Marlo, have you been here before?
I've been on Kevin's speech
on a different
show
one. On a different
Monday evening.
Oh, that's good. Well, so you're familiar with it. You know, we're all getting kind of comfortable, and we came right at the heels of another show. So we're running a little bit late tonight, but that doesn't matter. We're all cozied up. We're comfortable. And I want to welcome you both. And I want to start by beginning to talk about your individual introduction to your career. I have some questions for both of you. And this is easygoing. So you can interrupt me. You can interrupt each other. You can take over, and I can go get a cup of tea. Anyway, first question is, we're going to talk to you in your early background, where you grew up, and the influences and interest in art, hobbies, anything like that. So tell us about your early background.
Yeah, so I grew up in Monterey Park, which is a town on the east side of downtown Los Angeles, San Gabriel Valley. It's south of Alhambra and north of Montebello, and it was the suburbs, basically, LA County suburbs. And I think Marlo and I probably have a lot of similar things there, because I think we're the same age, roughly. So I grew up, as I say, in the suburbs, and I went to Montebello High School, and my counselor suggested that maybe I should go into either engineering or architecture, because he was also my drafting teacher, and he thought I had some abilities in drafting. So I thought, okay, that sounds good to me. So I guess I'll choose architecture, because that's more sounds more creative. So I signed up to be an architecture major in high school with the anticipation of following through in college. And so I, like many of the kids in my neighborhood, I went to the local community college, which was East LA College, just for financial reasons. And so I was in the architecture program, and I soon realized that the higher math was not going to be a good fit for me, to put it mildly. And so I wasn't sure really what was going to happen, because I thought I like architecture, but I really am terrible at math. So a professor from Cal Poly Pomona came to our architecture class and was recruiting people to the new landscape architecture program at Cal Poly Pomona, which I had never heard of. I never heard of the term landscape architecture, for that matter. So he explained what it was and the similarities and the differences. And I thought, boy, this sounds like just the ticket. So I went and talked to him after class, and he said, come on out and I'll sign you up. So that's what I did. So I went to Cal Poly Pomona in the mid 60s through 1969 when I graduated, and been doing this career ever since.
Well, it's really interesting when you mention it because the boy that I met in my high school also was from the same area. And, I keep thinking of those coincidences. I was in North Hollywood. You were there. Marla, where were you when you were starting out? Talk about your early background and, your school and how you ended up being interested in tile.
Right. I grew up in Lakewood. My dad was postmaster at Bellflower Post Office. And I finished high school and didn't take any art, but I did sing, choir, madrigals, things like that. And went on to Long Beach State, avoiding the draft. And I should mention my first experience with clay was at Cerritos Junior College.
Cerritos
Junior College.
So you both went to junior colleges.
I went for 5 semesters, and then I found my niche, found my crew, finally, because ceramics was the kind of thing that you could come in after class and work on it too. But I wound up transferring to Long Beach State.
That's fantastic. And at Long Beach State, who did you work with there?
Oh, there's a couple of doctors of ceramics, Dr. Ramsey and Dr. Yori. And, but the most important influence at Long Beach was some guest lectures that came through. A guy named Adrian Sachs, who's a internationally known ceramic artist. And he taught a porcelain class and a low fire class.
So porcelain and low fire.
Yes.
Okay. And that's really interesting because when you told me one time that your professors were doctors at the college, and all through the time that I was working at the university, UC Irvine, when Gifford Myers, John Mason was there,
Right.
and all that, none of the people had a doctoral. And that's really interesting to me because I didn't know they even gave higher degrees in the area of ceramics. Did you know that, Bob?
I did.
I never heard of that. That's fascinating to me. Or they must have gotten it in another field and used the word doctor. I don't know. I mean, maybe they had a double, interest in certain things.
Maybe I think Dr. Ramsey was a specialist in glaze formulation.
So he had a chemical background too.
Chemical background, yes.
How interesting.
And like Bob was saying, I didn't get into the higher math.
Higher math wasn't, I know. It's those of us who are very visual. Sometimes it doesn't come to me. I had the same problem. So chemistry was really difficult for me. And so I was interested in medical as well as the arts. And that's the thing that turned me mostly in my direction, just like what you're talking about. Because if I couldn't dig a hole and jump into it and measure it and see it, I couldn't do it. So both of you were you raised in California too, Marlo?
Yes, native Californians like Bob.
Like Bob, you're natives.
And,
That's wonderful. So from the ground up, we're talking about that this program talks about, and I've had Kyle Karras, and earlier on we had 2 other people very well known here who had been on the program and talked about clay. And so that was really exciting because I'm trying to remember his name, and yet I should know. Oh, Bill Darnall.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Darnall came on. So we talked about clay before and the heritage of it. So I want to continue on with both of you to talk about some of the other aspects of your background and your interests. So I think, Marla, you just mentioned that you were in music too.
Yes.
What kind of music did you do?
Yes.
What type?
Vocal.
Oh, so you sang.
Choir.
You choir and you sang your voice. And
Yeah.
everything.
Madrigals.
Madrigal. How interesting that was. And Bob, did you have other interests aside from that?
Oh, well, in junior high, I was in the Glee Club, but I won't speak too much about
Oh,
that.
okay.
And my kids laugh at me because I like doing karaoke, but no, I have no skills in music or singing to speak
All
of.
right.
But,
Well-
but, I was going to mention the one interesting coincidence about Marlo and I is that both of us probably moved to Laguna about the same time. For me, it was 1974. And
71 for me.
So in the
Yeah,
70s.
and so our kids were the same age, roughly.
Yes.
And so when our kids, we both had boys, and when our kids were like 4 or 5 years old, we all joined the Indian Guides. And so the Indian Guides is how I knew Marlo.
That's right.
And I forgot his Indian guide name.
I'm
but
Talking Rock.
Yeah, I think I
What was it?
Talking Rock.
Talking Rock.
Talking Rock.
I,
Did you have one too?
I was White Cloud, and but anyway, so from our outings with the Indian Guides, the dads got to talking with each other, and I remember Marlo telling me that he was really interested in Catalina Tile, and he had done, some work with Catalina Tile. And so, go 20 years into the future, into the 90s, and I was able to be the designer for the Avalon project.
Awesome.
And
We're gonna talk about that.
and
some
so I
more.
thought,
Yeah.
okay,
That's great.
we need somebody to do the tile work because that's an integral part of the project. And I thought, wait a minute, Marlo, I think. So that's how we connected after all that period of time.
It's really wonderful, and we have a small community because I was going to say, you talked about your formal education. Informally, were there things that that you found really helped you on an informal basis, like people you met and they would inspire you, and you moved on from there, or was it mostly formal education that moved you?
I'm not sure exactly how to answer that. I think once I got into the profession, I realized it's really the most important thing is to understand and relate to the people that you're working with. So if it's a community that you're working with, you understand what that community is about, what their values are, what they value about their community, and then you kind of go from there. So I think there's, I guess to answer your question, there's some psychology involved in probably any profession, but especially my profession, because otherwise you end up doing things in a vacuum that people really don't want to have.
Right.
So
Well,
I know it's kind of a weird way to answer that question. But,
I think you're saying you set your personal some of your personal thoughts aside to embrace the audience a little better with the message.
yes,
And
exactly.
that makes good sense to me. Otherwise, you could be a narcissistic a-hole.
Yeah, I think if you're ego driven, that's not going to turn out well in just about any profession. And I would say in my profession, or architecture, I would say the same thing.
Yeah. Certainly, there are some artists that it's all about themselves and their art, and they could care less so much about public. But that's a whole different dynamic.
I think yes, and I think that what we have here tonight are two artists that work within the community. Their work is seen all through the community, not just here but elsewhere. So it's an interesting thing to think about how they have to change the way they see their business because they both have businesses, and how you get connected. So, for instance, Marlo, how do you connect with people who want to use your art? What can you give us some examples of how you connected with them? Do they call you? Do you meet them? You're showing at the festivals. Do you meet people there?
Right. Well, as far as tile making goes, I was a potter and specialized in pottery making for several years, and I got the job here at the Pottery Shack, throwing pots demonstrating pottery making at the Pottery Shack.
What year was that? About
71 to
70s?
73.
So Ira Larson was still here, and the Pottery Shack was had the eucalyptus trees out there,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
you were making.
I was making pots, and then along the way, I got interested in architectural tile, architectural ceramic. Instead of just pottery, I thought of ceramics in the service of architecture. And so in 73, I quit my job there, and we went to Spain.
You went to Spain?
Well, we went to Europe, and Spain was the destination where I wanted to see the work of Antoni Gaudi, because I'd seen this organic architecture that I really liked. And so that's how I got into
when you were
ceramics for architecture.
when you were at the Pottery
Shack.
Shack on Coast Highway,
Yeah.
because there's one called the Pottery Barn, which
No,
is
it's
smaller
not.
on the north end. But when you were at that Pottery Shack, did they have the Catalina tile there? Was that?
I don't know.
Did you ever see
No,
any of
I
the
never saw
pottery?
any of that. There was interesting. It was a ramshackle old house, or several houses, and there were places in the back where there were low-fire glazes from 50 years ago, and I experimented with those. And also there were installations of little tchotchke type ceramics pushed into the cement, mosaic style.
You know, I remember that
You do?
from years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember how charming it was, almost like you said, mosaic,
Yes.
pieces of chards,
Like the bench you did here at
like the bench
Villa Bella.
at Villa Bella, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing, and that you had, that memory. When you were here, Bob, did you ever go over to that Pottery Shack and see Marlowe over there?
I don't remember seeing him there, but I did live in that neighborhood. That I lived on Crest. My family lived on Crest Street originally, which is right up the street from the Pottery Shack, and now I live on Brooks. That's right down
Right in the same area,
neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I love the Pottery Shack. The dirt floors and the way everything was disheveled. And I think there was a Brayton Pottery,
Yes.
which was a block south of the Pottery
Correct.
Shack.
Right.
And that they had their own brand of pottery there, and they had a lot of the knickknacks, sorts
Yes.
of post-war knickknacks, like little burro carts and things like that. And I still have something I bought from an antique shop that was Brayton, just for that reason.
Yeah.
It brings us to, what brought you to Laguna Beach?
Well, for me, it was the feeling of the canyon, and I would say in particular when the Sawdust Festival first opened in, I think it was 68. I believe it was 67 or 68.
I'm trying to remember, because I remember when the people who did, quote, crafts like ceramics defected from the main festival,
Yeah.
and they went over there, and I was showing at the main festival.
I think the Sawdust was pre-1970 by a year or two.
I think you're right.
So I was in college then, and getting ready to graduate and figure out, where I wanted to live. And so really I would say the character of the Sawdust Festival and the canyon and the eucalyptus trees and well, it's a cliche, but the hippie vibe of it all was what drew me to Laguna. It wasn't the beach. I was never a surfer. Of course I liked swimming in the ocean, but that wasn't it for me in particular with Laguna, because when I was in high school, if we wanted to go to the beach to swim, it was usually Huntington Beach, because it was, more user-friendly sort of a beach compared to Laguna. But Laguna had this different, eclectic, idiosyncratic kind of quality to it that I just loved. And that's what brought me here.
Yeah. And so did you know about Laguna though? I mean, what brought, you
Well,
went to Huntington Beach?
actually, in my growing up in Monterey Park, our parents would take us to the beach occasionally on a Sunday. That was our day for a car trip. And I do remember coming to Laguna a few times in the 50s when the original greeter was here. And, that was just so magical. Laguna was magical. And so I think it created an impression on me way back then. And then I remember for my 16th birthday, my parents said, what do you want to do for your 16th birthday? And in our school, being a surfer was a super cool thing. So even if you weren't a surfer like me, you still wanted to sort of tag along in that tag along. So I had a surfer magazine, and they had one of the articles was about the Brook Street surfing contest. And so here I was turning 16. I said to my mom and dad, could we go to Laguna Beach? And I want to see what it's like. I want to see this surf contest. So that's what we did. And now I live on Brook Street.
Which is really, we'll go back to that in a minute, but I wanted to turn to Marlo, because I know that you were a surfer too.
Yeah.
And you did that for many, many years.
Right.
Tell us about your experience and how you got to Laguna and your relationship with that.
Well, I got to Laguna because I got the job at the Pottery Shack.
And how did you get the job at the Pottery
I
Shack?
followed one of my colleagues from Long Beach State into the job.
Okay.
And then who followed me into the job was a guy named Greg Escalante, who wound up being quite a great guy with a great reputation in the art world. But Pottery Shack was right out on the street. People walking by and also just stopping to watch. I was able to turn off my mind and just make pots. So it was
There's
a great job.
something good about that.
$3.18 an hour and
$3.18 an hour.
yeah, and profit sharing once a year from Mr. Childs, the owner.
That makes me laugh
Yeah.
because I remember I was told to come to Laguna. I didn't know where it was. At the time, I was living in Costa Mesa. I had moved from the Valley, San Fernando Valley, Studio City.
I knew you were a Valley girl.
I was a Valley girl. I was a Valley girl. And I remember, my son was not quite a year old, and we came, and I was studying with Rex Brandt, the well-known watercolorist in Corona del Mar. And my the man that owned the condo, I guess you wouldn't call it a condo, they were like apartments, where my husband and my son and I were living, said, "Oh, she knew about my art." She said, "Oh, you should go to Laguna." And I said, "Well, where's Laguna?" I knew as far as Corona del Mar, and I didn't know any further. And so it's interesting because when you come to Laguna, just like what Bob was saying, you go down that canyon road where it was winding, and there was something that happened. It was just a sense. And I always ask people, even today, what brought you to Laguna Beach? Because it's so unique here.
Yeah.
And here, you've been here for all these years, as we all have. Craig, you've been here too.
Yeah.
And we keep on finding new things.
I think when it's kind of like you could add to the attraction of Laguna Beach is coming here and that edgy bohemian vibe that was so left over from when it was such a colony, an artist colony, and it was just kind of everyone did their own thing, and that was very much became a part of Laguna Beach as it matured, which is the greeter and the Pottery Shack and I don't know, all the artist and the art events that went on were just branded, I must have
Well,
say
they
that.
actually started a whole way of selling art in a different way. The festival inspired other cities to do things, and our Sawdust Festival and the art festivals and the art school had a lot of permutations everywhere else. And so, and it's true that the branding was amazing. I mean, I remember the hippies that lived here. And
Yeah.
I remember I said this before in my program. My son was sent home from El Moro School. And I said, why are you being sent home? Why are all the children coming home? And he said, well, something, and very innocently, he said, he's like 7 or something. He said, well, they told us that the teachers were going on a trip. And that was when Timothy Leary was
Oh, my.
here in the canyon. And so, all those things that happened,
Well, even part of that branding is the people that got up and stood up and said, we don't want this development in the canyon. We want to preserve the
oh,
canyon.
there's a huge walk.
And that was the huge walk. I mean, that is a big legacy for Laguna Beach, because it's kind of like, we're the people, and what's that song? They take paradise and turn it into a parking lot.
Right, right.
Pave paradise, put in a parking.
Yeah, and I can't remember.
Pave, yes.
Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell
I
sang
might
that.
play that one.
Yeah.
But
It's called the Big Yellow Taxi.
yeah, I'll get that up. And that's was Laguna Beach was just kind of in their face and said, we don't want you. We don't want your development here. We don't want your money. We don't want anything. We're happy to have the canyon and be a part of our culture.
And
So-
people asked me when I left the valley, they said, well, why are you going there? And there's nothing there. I said, exactly. Because already the San Fernando Valley, the Studio City had filled up, and people were, people were going faster and faster. And we see that, of course, wherever we go as humans, it, becomes popular. And this place was so small, one road down the canyon and one along the highway, 2 ways in and out, and that was it. But it had such an incredible array of interesting people, and there was always something happening, and it was very inspirational. And and so both of you came to Laguna, and you found that was your place, and you've been here, raised families here, and created your own life as your business life as well, which has really led you to some very interesting places. And we're going to talk about that too, what those places are.
I feel like since all 4 of us here are Lagunians, I don't want this to seem that we're denigrating people that live in any other place.
No.
No, of course not.
That's
We
definitely
loved
not
where we lived
not the
before.
case. I mean, my mom grew up in Echo Park area, and I absolutely love it up there.
Bob, that's a good point to make. I appreciate your comment
and
on that.
I could move up there in a heartbeat and be very happy.
It's not for everyone.
And my family
it's
lived in
not meant
Silver
to be
Lake,
for everyone.
so I know
Yeah,
exactly that same area.
That's where I was born, and so all places are good. You just they all have things to appreciate.
But I think the magic is what we're talking about tonight is when you come, everyone here kind of discovered it in their own way, and as something
exactly it.
and that's
It was
kind of the magic
yeah.
part of it.
It's
I know.
not to put anything else down. It was just to show that this somehow we found ourselves here from different points of view.
Right.
My parents went to Hawaii in their 50s to house sit for 2 weeks, and they never came back. Because they discovered Hawaii, and that's a small community on the Big Island, and everyone knew my dad in the hardware store, and everyone talked to everyone at the post office, and that's what they wanted, and it was in paradise. So they never came back. And so I think that happens with Laguna Beach. I think it happens where you said, Bob, you said you would go and be happy.
Echo Park.
Echo Park. It happens in Echo Park, but it is. I think there is a real strong culture here that for a lot of people is very attractive.
Well, we know about the arts are really significant. I'd like to shift off and talk about some very specific things. Marlo, the kind of work you started to do, and we were talking about the tiles. There's a particular, you were talking to me we started to think about this program, about the kind of tile work you were doing and the way you did it. And I asked you, I was fingering some of those tiles and feeling the ridges in it. And and I understood what cloisonne was, and I did clay work myself, but never like you. Tell us a little bit about the unusual quality of the tile and how you approach it.
I found in my neighbor's garage a panel with a parrot painted on it that was Catalina tile. It was in a frame, a welded metal frame. It's very sturdy. It was an architectural decorative piece for the outside of a building. And so I asked the neighbor I asked my professor, what is this dry line that's separating the colors? Because the feathers on the bird were delineated. It looked like a raised lump of beautiful glaze. And parrots in particular, and flowers and things, lend themselves to this kind of use of this technique, which we call cuerda seca, meaning dry line.
Cuerda seca.
Cuerda seca. Mm-hmm. And from my dear wife, Kathy, who's listening. Hi, honey.
Hi, Kathy.
She was majoring in textile art at Long Beach State. And she introduced me to the technique of batik, which I use that tool, the batik tool, to do the line work on my tiles. And that's how I got started on the cuerda seca.
Right, because it uses a resist method.
It's a resist.
Of the wax, and then the color will stay away from that.
Yes.
Yes, and I think that's really, it's so beautiful because it has the most unique quality, and the color. Then I asked you one time when I was up at your house looking at your tiles about the edge of that color, and when it's a very fine edge. It drops down into the line,
right.
And the color, for instance, if it's green or yellow, it has another color. It becomes even brighter on the edge.
Right. That's what I like about it. It's like an accident that isn't a happy accident.
It's a happy accident, yeah. Right? But
yeah.
You can also mix colors into it.
Right. Colors can be blended in or left separate,
or left on the top, pure.
Isn't there some artistic content when it comes to firing the tiles and in the kiln and how they're used, the paint and the changes when it goes through a kiln?
You want me to get technical?
Well, a little bit, yeah, because I think that's part of the art. It's not just just throw some paint on some stuff and you put it in the oven and bake it. There's a lot more to it, right?
Sure.
Help me out here.
Where do I start?
Okay.
Because there's raised qualities too. You can make it actually have dimension.
Dimension, exactly. So one summer in the Soda Festival, I was selling pots, 10, 12-inch pots, $15.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me to do it. Somebody asked me to buy my first tile painting, which was a copy of a Catalina parrot. And he said, I'll give you $150.
That was a huge amount.
I never look back.
I guess
I
not.
love your explanation. I think that's...
Yeah. I still use the potter's wheel to create round shapes.
Yeah.
I use the extruder, which is like a handle maker, to make the trim pieces. And warping is natural. And so I wound up doing lines that are warped instead of all square. Anyway, that's...
Yeah, I mean, the technique is really interesting. And Bob, when you're working, not only with Marlo, but when you're developing your techniques, were there some things that you changed from the way you were taught, or things that you found that were really helpful, new ways of working with techniques and presentations?
No, I would say for me, every project is different. And so there's never a formula. And you just try and stay open-minded and go with the flow. But actually, one thing, as Marlo was talking, I'd like to interject a little story if I could. So in my career, I would say probably the most enjoyable time I ever had was working on the Avalon project. and Marlo was a big part of that. And I think if I can describe how this feeling of freedom that we had, so the Avalon, the original Avalon was designed by the Wrigley family. This is the 20s and early 30s. So when they finished up downtown Avalon, they brought their graphic designer out from New York. His name was Otis Shepard. And Otis Shepard was a graphic designer. And so doing this Catalina waterfront was really out of his element. But he was such a gifted designer and such a creative person. He just did it the way he felt like doing it. So that meant if there was a stucco seat wall, Otis Shepard thought, hey, there's some broken tiles over there. Let's just put one here and one there, and we'll just kind of create this unplanned look. And so, of course, Marlo appreciated that. I appreciated that. So we'd be going over on the boat, and we get over there, and there was no plan, nobody looking over our shoulder to say, oh, you can't do this or that. It's just like, you guys go for it. And we just, remember, Marlo?
Freedom.
Yeah. So Marlo would get a tile out of his box. Maybe it was a pelican or something. Hey, what do you think about it? Let's put this one over here next to that palm tree. What do you think? And we'll put it on a funky angle. And so that's what we did. And it got built that way. And it was just such an amazing gift to have that amount of freedom. And I mean, I would say even if we weren't getting paid, we would have easily done that, right? I mean, it was
right.
Just,
well, we went to several meetings. I know you went to several. I went to more than one, I think.
Yeah.
That the townspeople who were passionate about their town,
yes,
came together to offer advice and get a look at you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, we had to be one of them
Yeah.
in order for this
Right.
to succeed, because in Avalon they had some false starts with other consultants in the 80s, where I was bringing up the ego part. So some big architectural firms were presenting what they wanted to do with the waterfront, and the townspeople didn't like it, didn't feel like that represented them. So those designs never were implemented. So then it was on hold for 8 or 10 years, and they bring it up again. And I was able to team up with an engineer, and we were awarded the project. But I knew from the start that this couldn't be something forced on the community. I had to show that I had a sincere, need to feel like it was organically coming from the townspeople, and that's the way it worked. And I not to get corny here, but my mother went to Avalon yearly as she was growing up. As I said, she grew up in LA. And so every summer they took a vacation, took the streetcar to the steamship terminal, went over to Catalina. So Avalon was sort of in her blood. And so I think her appreciation of that town and what the Wrigleys had done there kind of seeped into me. And so, and I brought that up in some of the meetings, because I felt like I was sort of an adopted person of the Avalon population. So anyway, I guess I just want to say how much I enjoyed doing that with you, Marlo. And it was one in a lifetime type of a project that we did there.
It was great. I would meet you at the boat in Long Beach by the Queen Mary.
Right.
And I had a 2-wheel dolly with boxes, and get off the boat and walk through the town.
Right.
Let me ask you, Marlo, did you use clay that
From the island?
from the island.
No.
Did you make the tiles there?
No.
So you designed it, and then you came back here to Laguna Beach,
Yes.
and to your studio, created the clay tiles, and then had them. There's a lot of them. You had them brought back. I mean, to the island.
Yes.
So, and then you and Bob worked together to install them
Right.
and place them. I understand. For the sake, I don't know, Craig, if it's possible, a couple of things I'd like people to take a look at. Can you show this picture of Otis Shepherd's this wonderful serpent wall?
Serpent, yeah.
And it looks like, it has a very humorous thing. Can you show this?
Yeah, and just get a little closer to
All
the
right.
camera.
Do you want to pull it in, Bob? Okay. See if you can show them what that looks like. And then,
Really? Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's really quite wonderful. And Bob had brought over this terrific magazine on their, I think it was their 20th anniversary. Is it the 20th?
No, it was just a article. I mean, a magazine that focused on the Avalon project.
Yeah, it was called A Walk in Time from your company, which is BCB, which is
BGB,
Borthwick,
yeah.
BGB,
Yeah.
Borthwick Guy and Bettelhausen.
Bettenhausen. Yeah, that's a former name, but anyway,
Right.
yeah, BGB.
So the Avalon Waterfront Restoration Project was quite amazing because you incorporated some of the very early tiles, Marlo,
Mhm.
that were there on the very top of the
Exactly.
fountain.
Right.
And then you placed, both of you together, placed this,
Well, actually, that fountain was more formal, so Marlo did that himself. My firm designed the fountain walls itself and the shape of it, and the structure of it, and Marlo did the tile on veneer on
it's
the
really
outside.
quite beautiful. And I haven't, now, when did you start and when did you finish the project?
That was in the late 90s. I think it started, the planning for it started in 96, and I think it finished about 99. Actually, a little quick side story, because I saw where you're going about with Marlo and the clay and where he made the tile. And because the people on the island like it if everything is sort of on the island. And in Marlo's defense, I mean, he couldn't really fire. He had to use his own kilns to fire the tile. So that's kind of not that important as far as where the tiles were fired. But in my case, there was some Mexican pebble decorative pavement that was done in the 20s and 30s. And so we wanted to duplicate that look in some of the new work that we did. So we specified Mexican pebbles because they looked just like the ones from the 30s. And they were also commercially available.
On the island?
Well, anywhere. You can buy
Anywhere.
Mexican tiles at a building supply store, Home Depot, and they have Mexican
Right.
tiles or Mexican pebbles. So I was home one weekend, and this area was going to be paved with the Mexican pebbles the following Monday. So I get a call from the museum director at my home, and she said, "Bob, are those pebbles from the island, or are they from Mexico?" And I said, "Well, they're from Mexico because we had to put on the plans things that were legally obtained, and you can't put Catalina pebbles that are part of the public domain. You can't just go scrape up
Environmentally, it wasn't
these
exactly.
pebbles on the beach and use it
Right.
to the contractors." So I said, "But I think we can work this out." So I flew over the next day, and I talked to the contractor, and he got a little Jeep, and he went out to somewhere along the ocean front, whether it was on one side or the other of the mean high tide line, I'll never know, and I don't want to know that, because that that got into the legality of it. But anyway, they got some Mexican pebbles, not Mexican, Catalina pebbles, and brought them up in a bucket. And 2 or 3 of us sort of ceremoniously mix those in with the other ones, so nobody knew which was which. And it
That's beautiful.
So it had the they call it the Catalina blood. We want the Catalina blood to be, stay on the island.
Well, I haven't been there in many years, but it must be a real thrill for people to go over there and see this, and especially for the people who live there, to know that way you talked about building consensus and really listening to the people and how important that was. That was really
and
wonderful.
Speaking of we're listening, we're time for station identification here. We're on the hour, and we're going to hear Joni Mitchell too.
This disclaimer is a statement notifying listening audiences that any opinions expressed on our shows are not representative of Laguna Radio Inc., its management, or its board of directors.
Paradise, with a pink hotel, deep in a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? Paved paradise, put up a parking lot. Took all the trees, put them in a tree museum. And they charged everybody $1.50 just to see them. Don't it always seem to go, but you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Paved paradise, put up a parking lot. Hey, farmer, put away the DDT now. Give me spots on my apples, just leave me the birds and the bees. Don't it always seem to go, but you don't know what you got till it's gone. Pay paradise, put up a parking lot. Pay paradise, put up a parking lot. Late last night, heard my screen door slam, and a big yellow taxi took away my old man. Don't it always seem to go, but you don't know what you got till it's gone. Pay paradise, put up a parking lot. Don't it always seem to go, but you don't know what you got till it's gone. 2, 3, 4. Pay paradise, put up a parking lot. Pay paradise, put up a parking lot. Pay paradise, put up a parking lot. Hey! Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Hey, you won't do that in Laguna Beach. You won't take paradise and put in a parking lot. They won't allow it. This is Craig on Rainbow Radio. We're here once a month on the second Thursday of every month with our guests this evening, Bob Borthwick and Marlo Bartels and Leah Vasquez at the helm with our show. But first, before we get back to our guests and stuff, I need to let everyone know about the first annual Laguna Achievement Festival, and they call it the Laugh Awards. And we're putting this on for the community. We want to recognize those in the community who we want to celebrate the achievements of those in the community, whether it's arts, music, sports, food, culture, and we want to have a party to talk about it. Now, it's like the Academy Awards in that we do ask people to vote. So this is where you come in and where it's really important. If you go to our website right now, you can see the different categories are out there that you can vote. and you can vote for the best nightclub. You can vote for the best foodie place, and the best singer, the best surfer. It's all there. And you pick the ones and vote, and those votes will be tabulated and sealed in a mayonnaise jar so no one can get to them until the night of the event. And when is this event? Well, it's the end of this month, March 29th. It's Saturday night, and it's at 7 Degrees, which is a great venue, great place to have a party. It starts at 5:30 and goes until 11. So we want you to come and join in the celebration. There is there's food and drink and everything, and it is, tickets are $55 each or $100 for two. And where that money goes is to support community radio and KXFM. But the important thing here is that we want to give back to the community and recognize those who have made and celebrate the achievements of those that are part of the community, that make the arts, music, sports, food, and culture a big deal here in Laguna Beach. So if you have time, go to our website, which is kxfmradio.org, kxfmradio.org, and it's smack dab on the first page right there. You can't miss it. You can vote, and you can reserve your tickets for the grand event. There's an after party. There is a rooftop party. There's party celebration, award ceremony celebrating lots of live entertainment, which we will have. So it's a whole evening of an outrageous party, and it goes on with an after party at 11 o'clock. So it's not to be missed, and it's the first annual. So it's all bets are off. What's really going to happen?
It's the first time, correct?
The
first time. Also, it came out in the local paper, and it had a list of the different categories, and so you really have to use those categories.
Yeah, well, it's all there when you go to vote. That lays it all out.
That's right. Well, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
we'll see you there.
Absolutely. So, well, I'm going to toss it back to Leah here and Bob and Marlo, and let's pick up where we left off before our commercial break and our station identification.
We of course were delighted to have both Marlo Bartels, well-known ceramicist, and has done beautiful projects locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. And Bob Borthwick, the same, has done and is doing many projects. We're going to talk about some of your challenges on your projects that are important. Because it gives people who are coming up into the field, who are listening to the program in architecture, landscape architecture, in art, an idea of some things and how to work them out. And I think that's really important because the sense of consensus building and listening to the groups or person that you are working with, and having a relationship with not only those people, but everybody in the community itself, and also the people that are working for you. That is really important. And I'd like for a minute to stop on both of you and talk about how important that is, and some of the challenges when you're working on projects such as these big public projects, especially, which are, has a community involved. And you were talking about that, Bob. About how important that was when you got on Catalina, but there are you've worked together on other projects too, and maybe you can talk something about those other projects and some of the challenges.
Well, I think the next project that I worked on with Marlo was the San Clemente Trail, and the San Clemente Trail it's a 2.4 mile oceanfront trail along the railroad tracks in San Clemente. And that project was highly controversial before we got involved. So the controversy luckily had dissipated, and the city decided to go another direction. We were the new direction, so we had a good time. So that was a similar story to the Avalon project, where they had controversy, and then we were able to, fortunately, get in to the program and not be controversial. I would say personally, probably the most controversial project I ever worked on was Alta Laguna Park in Laguna Beach. And that one was because there was a contingent of people in town that wanted to keep the park as small as possible to have less traffic, less out-of-town visitors, and just keep it more low profile. And the other side of the coin, we had the people in town that wanted to create a baseball field up there because there was only one baseball field, and that was at the high school. So in order to create the baseball field, it meant we had to grade the park in a way that pushed soil out on the edges of the park towards the open space to create a larger flat area for the park. So that was very controversial, especially living here. Boy, you know, I remember going to a meeting at Alta Laguna, at Top of the World School, and people that I knew that were my friends that lived up there that wanted the smaller park were not happy that I was promoting the bigger park because I was consultant to the city along with Ann Kristoff and Fred Lang. But in my heart, I felt like the bigger park that we were promoting was a good solution, and otherwise I wouldn't have promoted it. So, but anyway, there was some interesting times where you saw people in the audience of a city council meeting that were waving picket signs that were against you, against me. and so anyway, that was kind of an interesting controversial project. But fortunately, I've been lucky, or I've been able to be on the right side, I think, of controversial projects. So I don't have any horror stories to tell in that regard.
On that park, you were working with Marlo as well?
No, there was no time.
That was a San Clemente trail. And on that set, I wanted to ask you, the challenges aren't always with people, but sometimes the challenges itself is with the terrain and the geology of the site.
Yeah.
And how you deal with that.
Yeah, in San Clemente, the controversy was the original plan for this trail was a high-speed bicycle trail, asphalt, with chain link fence on both sides, and it would have been exclusively for bicycle riders, a higher speed type bicycle trail. And the people in town really wanted a multi-use trail. Once they found out the trail that was going in, they rebelled and they pushed back, and the city changed direction. And so the trail that we were able to work on was a DG trail that was accessible to any ADA abilities, and was more natural and so forth. There was a terrain issue of a small canyon that we had to design a bridge to go across. And anyway, everything worked out great. And Marlo was great again to do did a beautiful bench with kind of the Gaudi broken tile effect on the top of the bench. And then we had crossings from all the different neighborhoods. I forget how many neighborhoods there were, but maybe 6 or 8 neighborhoods that crossed the tracks in the trail intermittently along the trail. So in each case, we had Marlo do a tile sign that said, Los Pozos Trail, or or crossing, I should say, and identified the streets. And so San Clemente was similar to Avalon in that the town evolved from the 30s, and it had a Spanish architectural sort of context. So it was kind of similar. It had a similar vibe to it, as lots of communities in Southern California that were from the 30s had that context. So we used some of the same graphics and some of the same colors that we used in Avalon were used in San Clemente, and it fit perfectly. Everybody was happy.
Well, we're only 26 miles across the sea, right?
Yeah.
Otis Shepherd font for the lettering that we did that
Right.
described this street you were crossing.
Right. Yeah, Otis Shepherd, the graphic designer for the Wrigleys, came up with this unique font style of lettering for Avalon, and we kind of borrowed that in San Clemente.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Avalon residents don't mind.
It was appropriate.
Right.
It fit right in.
And Marlo, talking about your benches and different things you've been doing, they're all over Laguna, and we've seen them. Tell us some about some of the projects and where they're located, some of the things you've done in the early pieces and then the later pieces, and where people can see them when they're. I know when you're walking through Laguna, people will be able to see sides of buildings. They'll be able to see benches. They'll be able to see many different things. One of the very first things you ever did, though, the very first project you did in Laguna was it Main Beach?
Main Beach.
Main Beach.
Chess and checkers.
Canyon Chess and Checkers. It was 1981, and I finished that. Also, I ran into some controversy because the Beautification Council didn't want anything on Main Beach, and so
That was before my
they
time.
fought it. So a commissioner named
That was Harry Lawrence.
Yes, and Beverly Inskeep was on the Arts Commission, and she went to bat for me and went to these meetings, and she went through quite a bit of red tape, and I think now that it's been there since '81, it's pretty much accepted. I know they're doing some remodeling around it right now.
They are,
And
right.
Ruben is making some suggestions on replacing the 2 trees that used to be there. Because I designed it for shade.
And the trees are
and
not
the
there.
trees are no longer there.
No
So
longer there.
it gets hot to sit there.
Right. There were a lot of those kind of controversies. I remember Hal Pastorius had a very large
Yes.
piece there that they took down.
Right.
It was a big sculpture out of
Yeah.
Corten
steel.
Corten steel, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that controversy because I lived here too, and I was in the Beautification Council at
Right. At
period
that
of time.
time.
But I think the issue was to not have freestanding art on Main Beach Park that would somehow detract from the view of the
The
ocean.
window to the sea.
The window to the sea. And
but I think
Right.
in Marlowe's defense, what he did was like furniture. It wasn't really
Exactly.
necessarily a freestanding look at me piece of art like Hal Pastorius's.
right.
It was
exactly.
actually something people could sit in.
And it was consistent.
It had a checkerboard on the top,
Right,
right?
right.
So people could sit in it
Still does.
and play chess or checkers. So
Well, seating was
So,
also very
it was
good.
it was a perfect solution to that spot, I thought.
And we
it-
still have it. We still have that piece there and other pieces that people can sit on and enjoy, and they all work in very nicely. So I think not only did we have to, the city and the Beautification Council, that have to look at things differently, that things can be on the beach that are art, but they fit into it in a way that not only doesn't distract, but also enhances the experience. You can sit at it, talk about it. You have other pieces all through Laguna like that. Tell us a little bit about some of your other pieces on the sides of buildings, everywhere in the canyon, downtown.
Well, there's the bench in front of the museum.
That's right.
It's got the elements of sculptures, titled Elements. It's got the elements of sculptures, sphere, cone, cylinder
Right in front of the Laguna Museum on Cliff Drive.
on Cliff Drive.
Right.
Downstairs at the museum is a wall, I think it's 8x8,
Inside.
drinking fountain wall, also all tiled in large handmade tiles with a plein air type painting above the drinking fountain. I really like that one. And I got to give a shout out to Ted Paulson, who passed away. We went to his memorial a few weeks ago. Ted Paulson was president of the museum at the time. And this was during the remodel of 85 or 86. And he wanted to give money to permanent art instead of giving money to the building committee. So he asked me to come up with a piece to make a wall that will function as well as be beautiful. So I made that wall. His wife, Suzanne, was in my art history class at Long Beach State, and she was my study buddy. And then later on, their daughter, Kristen, got a job, also an art historian. She got a job at Home Savings of America. And Home Savings, I did, I think, 11 bank murals.
Home Savings and Loan?
Home Savings and Loan.
Yes, because they also had the mosaic tiles on the walls.
Millard Sheets.
Millard Sheets did.
Yes, yes.
From Otis Art Institute when I was there, and he was getting commissions.
Yes. Well,
Right.
he was the godfather of big murals
Oh,
in
yes.
Southern California. There's a new book, or not new, but there's a book by a fellow about the banking on art, it's called.
Banking on Art.
On
right.
art, yeah. Let's see, what was I going to say?
And then you have other pieces all through the canyon on the Sawdust. I think you
Oh, yeah, the facade of the Sawdust Festival, the archway.
have the archway there.
And then in the inside of the fountain, inside the drinking fountain wall, and I can temper my stuff. Like the drinking fountain wall of the Sawdust is appropriate for that exact spot. In that there were a lot of little old shacks in the woodland area that had California tile in them, light green, pink, burgundy, and they used them willy-nilly, mixed them up, and that inspired the heck out of me.
Those
Just so
inspirations,
casual,
yeah.
so
Oh, nice.
unserious, so just, oh, we got this, let's put this here.
Sounds very Laguna Beach.
Well, I'm living proof.
There you go.
I think we
You
all
know,
are.
as you say that, all the locations, it seems like there would be a great need for a self-guided art tour.
We've done
I
it.
think that is something that the Beautification Council has been talking about, working with
Oh, really?
with the Historical Society to have these tours. It's been
Yeah, I'll be the voice.
oh, we would love that. and somebody, and I think it would be a wonderful possible event to include some of our students here at the high school who are in art,
Yeah.
to have them become familiar with these places and take people on the tour and get credit for their
Sure.
community activity, which they can, and it helps them when they move on into college.
Be docents for the
I mean,
city.
there's a lot of possibilities. So there's always something new that we can
Mhm.
introduce. And I think with Bob's work and with Marlo,
I just tonight realized how many times I've sat on his benches. I've looked at his work.
you've been
and,
well sat on.
and I've been well sat on, yeah, and never met the person behind him until this evening. So
yeah,
it's amazing.
It's really fantastic what these two people have brought and have, their legacy and moving on, new projects. I wanted to, if it's not too soon.
I got
for
to
you
jump in.
talk-
This is KXFM 104.7, Laguna Beach's community radio here. I'm with Art Walking Art. We're here every second Tuesday of every month.
Thursday.
Thursday, excuse me. Second Thursday of every month.
And from 7 to 9, but we get a little bit late start sometimes because we have other programs in front of us. So, have patience with us. We enjoy sitting together. We're talking and sharing. Bob Borthwick and Marlo Bartels with us this evening. And it's really wonderful to hear some of favorite projects also. I'd like to know also what's coming up for you in terms of new projects. What are you working on now? Or are you continuing on with other projects? Let us know what's going on.
For me, as far as paid projects, I'm phasing out of my practice. I mean, my practice is still going, but I'm sort of retired for the most part. We're finishing up the Crystal Cove cottages in the historic district, which is a wonderful project. I mean, as far as about as unique a project as you could get. Luckily, we had done the Avalon project and then the San Clemente project within a span of a few years, and both of those projects were well received. So we were approached by Crystal Cove to be the landscape architects on the final phase of, I think it's 17 cottages. This is the last phase. And so we're in the final stages of seeing that go and be implemented. The interesting thing about that project is, as far as the design goes, that last phase of Crystal Cove is built on a hillside. It's not flat like the earlier parts of Crystal Cove. So because it's on a hillside, there was a lot of complicated pedestrian infrastructure to get to the cottages. In other words, staircases that had to be ADA accessible and solid and stable and so forth, because the cottages originally had little dirt paths with railroad ties and things, and the state couldn't, have that type of a setup for liability purposes. So we designed a lot of decks and staircases that traverse the hills there. But as far as the softscape goes, that had to replicate what was there pre-1962, I think it was. There was a cutoff date, because this is a registered historic site, that it wasn't like, okay, let's make this look beautiful. Let's make it look like Disneyland. Let's make it look like it looked in the 30s and 40s and 50s. So, and that wasn't just up to our speculation. It was up to us evaluating photographs and going through the stories, the oral histories of each cottage. Aunt Myrtle planted a jade tree in that little corner for Christmas or something. And so that's the kind of landscapes that we're creating, which was as close as we could to the original. So that made it really interesting. The state historian was on site. She had a thick notebook of every house, who lived there and what color it was, and everything about it. So that was very interesting. And from a designer, you were really, from a softscape planting standpoint, you were implementing what was there. So it took all the pressure off of you of having to create something that the client would, be drawn to, because we're just.
Yes. And there are some interesting things I remember before all of this became a historic site. And I guess these cottages are state cottages, correct?
It's owned by the state of California.
Yes, and they are rentable.
Yes.
And that's the purpose of it. So you're going to actually be able to stay. How many cottages are there?
I think there's 47 or something.
So
that many.
46, 47.
It's amazing, and they're being refurbished.
Exactly like they were.
Yes, and so they had to have all of that information, the color, and then the people owned it. So how Are you working with anybody else on that project for the signage, for instance, and who lived there? And I mean, how are you approaching that?
Well, the state does all of that, the state historian. So they probably have some flyer about the history of each house. But I just have to take my hat off to the way the state has handled that project, and in collaboration with the nonprofit, which is Crystal Cove Cottages. And they have these contractors that are just putting their hearts into this.
That's wonderful.
And they don't look the other way. I mean, if there's some new product like a faucet or something that you could buy at Home Depot that'd be a lot easier to get, they don't do that. They get from some
Old.
antique store or something. They get the right
Oh,
thing.
wow.
So it's just an amazing project.
Oh,
and
that's
and the other thing is, from a softscape planting standpoint, there's no irrigation on that project, which, in Southern California, that's very rare to ever have a project with no irrigation, because everybody wants to make sure that the plants that they're paying for at least get a good start.
Isn't the salt air a big challenge for
Yeah,
planting?
it is. And so it's kind of like survival of the fittest. And so the plants, when you walk by that new phase, well, any of the phases there, you'll see plants that maybe some of them are struggling a little bit. Some of them have salt air burn, but that's the way it was. That's the way it's been for 100
They
years.
want it to look the
So
way it's supposed to look,
Yeah.
and like it looked. Otherwise, you erase the history.
yeah, it's not sugarcoating it. It's
Oh.
like it always has been that way.
The
So,
last time I was there, the cottages, I guess, which would be to the north on the beach, were
yeah,
boarded up, and it was, on some level, I kind of liked it. It was like you looked at, it's like there's a lot of paintings of where the kids have left their buckets and shovels on the beach. They've been abandoned, that
Right.
a kid's been
that
there.
nostalgia. That
And they've had a good time, but they're gone now. And I look at those cottages and I think it's wonderful that they're coming.
well, the boarded
coming
up
back.
ones are pretty much all fixed up now. I mean,
That's amazing.
they're ready to go.
I'm gonna have
And,
to go back.
and the landscape for the last half dozen is still going in.
and the
But-
rain will help.
Yeah. So the landscape was never sophisticated. It was just landscape people that would maybe come to these cottages for the summer or something. They would bring plants that somebody gave them,
lemon
or
tree.
succulents that they would break off and just stick in the ground here and there. And that combined with the native plants, there was lemonade berry and toyon and other hardy woody natives that were there. But they would just throw in ice plant, because it grew without water. And that's another
Wow.
funny thing. I mean, so of course we have invasive plant lists in the state. There's certain plants that are invasive, and many of them should 100% be banned and gotten rid of, like pampas grass and arundo and things like that. But other plants that are not as aggressive are still on the state invasive list, meaning you can't plant them. And the thick ice plant, like in Southern California, we used to call it the freeway ice plant, the thicker green ice plant, that was used all over Crystal Cove in the 20s and 30s because it was one of the few plants that would grow without any care or irrigation or fertilizer or anything. Just stick it in the ground, it would grow. So this is a state project,
Mhm.
and we go over the head of the state invasives plant list because it was historic, and so that's what we're told to plant. It doesn't matter that it's theoretically invasive, and so if you're not a landscape architect or person doesn't know about horticulture, that whole story would be sort of not that interesting, but to me, it's kind of interesting because here you're working on a state project and you're doing something that's 100% in opposition to state regulations.
Wow.
But that type of ice plant, it's invasive, maybe up around Monterey, Silomar, those areas, because it's the perfect climate for that plant to just expand out onto the sand and truly become a problem. Southern California, like up there at Crystal Cove, it's not a problem. It stays where it's supposed to be, and it doesn't.
Well, it's interesting to know behind the curtain what goes on
Yeah.
and all of that. It's not just haphazardly thrown. You go to Home Depot and buy some packets of seeds and just throw them on the land and hope something
Right.
grows.
These are wonderful things, though, that that you're working on, and it's great for the public because I hope that along with it, and there'll be information about you, and as well, because then they can come into town, or they can go on they can continue down the coast from Crystal Cove, come into Laguna Beach, see Marlo's work, see your work together, visit these places to the San Clemente Trail, and maybe get over to Catalina and see that wonderful project. But while we're talking about that, Marlo, tell us about some of what you've been doing recently and some of your interests, your new projects, if you have some that are oncoming.
Yeah, recently finished a project in Monarch Bay.
In Monarch?
Monarch Bay. Anders Lasseter was the architect, and he wanted me to do a fire pit. So it's 2 walls on a right angle, 10 feet by 10 feet, and we tiled about 40% of the surface, and the rest of it was large commercial tiles. But there's a fire pit in the middle, and it looks good. Came out great. I am getting ready for the festival. We're doing the festival again.
The Sawdust Festival.
The main festival.
Oh, the main festival.
Festival of Arts.
What are you doing there? What are you?
I'll be doing furniture and wall pieces.
Well, that's going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you also show your work at the Sawdust?
No.
Just at the main
I was in the Sawdust for 20-something years. And I can't do both. So I just do one.
Right.
It's easy to do.
Well, I think it's really wonderful that and people will be able to go and see it. So you're getting ready now for that.
Yeah.
Are you teaching any classes?
No.
Are you going to be actually on site? People can talk about your work and
Yes.
she'll be really wonderful.
I'll be there sometimes.
So it'll open up June, the end of June?
Right around the 4th of July.
4th
July and August.
July. I know it's open. I wasn't sure if it opened up earlier than that.
It's like there might be a preview or something. I don't know. I don't know about the dates, but right around the 4th of July.
Well, that'll be great.
Yeah.
That'll be wonderful that you're doing that. Have you explored any new ways of working on your tile that you haven't done before? Are you doing anything like that? Or, I know.
Pushing it?
Yeah, pushing it.
No.
Boundaries.
I like just doing it the way I do it.
I wanted to ask you about, talk a little bit about this because when I was at UCI, we had a ceramics department, and there are no longer ceramics departments at UC Irvine. And then the School of Art in Laguna Beach, which is LCAD now, they used to have ceramics too. And I was wondering about how that's impacting the continuation of having ceramics as a medium to use in art and the disappearance of having them, actually people teaching it.
Private studios are taking up the slack on that. There's one in San Clemente, I know. There's one or two in Costa Mesa. There's one on Ocean Avenue.
We have one here. Yes, we have one on Ocean.
So I think that I taught at the art school for 3 years, in the early 70s.
Right.
My teacher from Long Beach, or from Cal State Fullerton, John Stokesbury,
Yes.
introduced me to the program there. And I wound up writing my first National Endowment grant. Well, I had a secretary there. So that was good. And then my buddy Gifford Myers taught at UCI.
Yes, I was there
And
when he
I
was there.
sat in for him a time or two and got to see the big kilns that John Mason built.
That's right.
And Joe Solvay was also there.
That's right.
So yeah, it was in good times in pot shops. After the art school, I wound up teaching at Saddleback College 2 nights a week.
So you went there.
And so I went over there to teach.
Are they still? I know they have.
They have a very active pot shop.
Yeah.
Um,
There were some really good people over there too.
the epicenter of it for me was Long Beach State. Big department, open 24 hours. Lots of creative people, lots of
Right.
interesting work going on.
That's great.
Yeah.
I was remember John Mason was
Yeah.
there, and so many of the artists who were doing well. Of course, we had many ceramicists in Laguna Beach. We had Jerry Rothman, who has work all along, like with yours, all along Heisler Park,
Right.
places like that, and his clay that he developed,
Yes.
that non-shrink clay,
Right.
FSB.
Fullerton Sculpture Body.
Yes, and Aardvark clay in Santa Ana
Yeah.
would have that. And did you ever develop your own clays
No, I wasn't into
into the chemistry?
no.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was very interesting when Julia Klemick had
Yeah.
pieces here, and she has the Rocky Ledge along Heisler Park as
Right.
well. So we had a big history with ceramics, and when we had our other guests on talking about the history of clay, the deep dive on it. I know that there was Adam Sherman. I don't know if you knew Adam Sherman. He used clay from Laguna Beach,
Oh.
and he was at UCI, and he went on into the film industry. But he made these particular pots that mimicked the, you would say, the coastline on one edge, and then he took his glazes though. The actual clay body came from Laguna Beach, and his glazes were made from the products used for like Comet, the colors, and he used all those in the glazes. It's
Oh, yeah.
fascinating. Yeah. He made these pieces. I have several, and then he went on, which I never saw, to make them the size up to 8 feet high.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty amazing stuff. So the history of ceramics was such a integral part of art movement. So many, Picasso, all of them, they all used clay. I mean, it was a really wonderful medium, and it was so flexible, and it could do so many different things with it,
Yeah.
everywhere. So it's wonderful that you've been carrying that through, and your family, does that. I've seen work at your house. Really surprising. Your house is amazing. I had a picture of you in your own bathtub with all the clay, and it's really so marvelous what you have, and the furniture that you've been making. Are you showing anywhere in terms of a gallery?
There's a store opening up in North Laguna, right past the Royal Hawaiian. It's called North End Design, and it's a woman named Moya O'Neill who designs metal cabinets. But she is a big fan of mine, and she's got a couple of my pieces that will go to the festival. But she's got a couple pieces right now
Fantastic.
that she's opening up in a couple weeks. Should be a big splash.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
That'll be great. Well, I'll look forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and of course, your family also, they carry on some of the.
Yes,
things,
Jesse.
Jesse's carrying it on. His tile work is around different areas too.
makes me proud.
It's wonderful that you've they've gotten that from you, and it keeps on going.
I say I taught him how to fish. Instead of giving him fish, I taught him how to fish.
That's really
You know,
good.
Donna.
Yeah. And I know that Kathy, your wife, also is very talented. And I've seen her work too. And, I was up at your house and just saw so much. I mean, the house is filled with beautiful pieces of ceramic and all kinds of things, even though she's not a ceramics per se, a ceramicist per se.
She
But she has
found a way to.
Yeah, she did. She found a way to do all that. It was terrific. Good for you, Kathy.
Yeah.
So, and Bob, are you? We were talking about your continuance. Do you have any ideas what you're going to be doing in your quote retirement? With group, I mean,
Well,
you're on several
yeah.
boards. You're on a number of.
Yeah, I'm on the Hortense Miller board, Hortense Miller Garden. So actually, I'm going to be a docent there soon. So I like meeting people from other countries and so yeah, I enjoy that. So I'm doing things that are apart from landscape architecture right now. Like the other one I'm enjoying is the working with the English as a second language program in Laguna with immigrants that are here trying to assimilate and learn English. And so I'm enjoying that a lot. It's a whole new world.
Where are you doing that?
Well, so I teach classes at the Susie Q Community Center. And so just a couple days ago, I had two husband and wife that were Chinese that knew almost no English at all. They're staying with their daughter in Laguna. And then there was a male who is about 40, and he's from Peru. And he's going to be here for 6 months. And he's trying to polish his English up. So he was much more advanced. The Chinese couple knew almost nothing. So we sang some songs together, because
I wonder how you communicate with them.
Sort of the universal thing. So yeah, I had my iPhone and I had printed out lyrics to a couple of songs, and so we were all singing. Anyway, I enjoy that type of interaction with people a lot. And then there's on Thursday nights, I co-teach a class in Lake Forest, which is Turkish immigrants. There are like 8 of them, 6 or 8 sometimes come. And
how do you communicate in the different languages?
well, the Turkish students are pretty fluent in English. So, you can just sort of embellish their English understanding pretty easily because they get the basics. It's more challenging at the lower levels when people don't have many skills. Like for instance, for last 2 years, I had 2 Ukrainian sisters who are in their 60s. They're living also with their daughter in Laguna, and they knew almost no English. I mean, so we had picture books, and we just looked at, okay, this is a banana, this is an apple, this is a monkey.
Do you have any of your landscape things in that book
No.
that you can take them on a little and this is a tree and this is growing here?
No, it's so really for them it was a way for them to get out of the house and meet other people that are Americans, and so for that it was worth it. And
I love that. I love that overlay that here you are, a landscape architect with big projects, and you're teaching ESL. And I think it's what I love, and I love that connection, that there's always a next step, and the involvement with others, because you said you loved being with people and meeting new people. You probably love traveling too.
Mm-hmm.
and meeting people. And here in Laguna, because we have so many people that come here from all
Yeah.
over, I almost daily I walk along near the Treasure Island, which is the Montage area, and I meet people from all over the world and talk to them about it. And they are so excited about learning everything
Yeah.
about the plants. They're always taking pictures of the plants, and
Right.
they're looking at, and they see the tile walls, and they see the ceramics, and they and the sculptures, and everything is new to them, and it's quite fantastic. You can start talking, and pretty soon they're like your best friends, and they're all excited, and they're so happy they've met you, and it's a wonderful experience, and all in about less than an hour.
I have a dear friend who comes every summer from the UK, and her favorite thing to do is go to Main Beach, probably sit on one of Marlowe's benches and converse with people from all over the world.
That's right.
And it's truly, and she'll come back and say, I had the best conversation today with these people, and and it happens again and again.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it does.
I think for me, it's like Marlo brought up when he and I were putting those benches together in Avalon, with putting the tile here and there, and there was a sense of freedom. I think Marlo brought up the term freedom, and I think for me, what I'm doing right now is I'm experiencing a sense of freedom, because when I go to these classes, everybody's a volunteer. There's no credit for these classes. Nobody signs up. Nobody pays for them. It's just, it's all volunteers. So I have no agenda and no special thing I have to teach. So I can just make it up, and
The freedom it gives you.
yeah. I mean, the night before, I'll go on the computer. What are the most popular songs in this country, in a certain country? I'll print out the lyrics, and then maybe we'll go talk about it at the
What
class.
a great way
And
to.
sometimes, it works. Sometimes it doesn't, and then you try something different. But the fact that nobody's looking over your shoulder and telling you what to do or what not to do is wonderful.
I had a similar experience where I went to Guanajuato, the University of Guanajuato. My brother was going to the university there, and we had a dinner with the host family, and they spoke no English. And here we are at this nice dinner, and I remember Mrs. Ariana was her name, and she was just beautiful, and all her family, and we couldn't communicate, and we started singing at the table. And the next thing I know, Mrs. Ariana's putting her hands going, oh, that's lovely, lovely. Oh, she was. And, we had the best evening, even though we didn't have a lot of conversation, but we shared it with music. I think that's a wonderful thing to do, Bob. Yeah.
I think that, one of the questions I had for both of you was what keeps you going and what inspires you? And that fit in right with that. Marlo, what keeps you going and inspires you?
I just love to see things get finished. And I'd like to travel to see things.
Oh, do you have any travels plans coming up?
No, nothing
Nothing
till after the summer.
after the summer?
Yeah.
Where are you going then?
Oh, I don't know yet. Probably Spain.
Back to Spain.
Yeah.
Well, there's always something beautiful there too. Everywhere you
there's
go.
lots I haven't seen there.
There's always so much. We go. There was a Chinese proverb that I think I said to a couple of people recently. It read, "Walk the same path every day, and you'll see something new." And no matter how many times you go back, you see something wonderfully new. I wanted to ask you, we're giving shout outs right now. And I don't know if you want to shout out any special things.
Shout outs. Well, yeah, a couple things coming up. The Hortense Miller Garden is having an public open house March 29th, which is a Saturday, just in a few weeks, from 10:30 to 2:30, and there'll be music, there'll be activities there. And if you haven't been to Hortense Miller Garden and you're in the area, it's really worthwhile. I know Leah has a long history there as well. It's a beautiful mid-century house built in 1958 by Hortense Miller and her husband
And
Oscar.
Fernald.
Yeah, Knowlton Fernald was the architect.
And he did. He also was the original designer for Laguna Niguel.
Right.
Started off that.
So that open house is coming up March 29th, and then
And how do people?
oh, you can go on the Hortense Miller website, and they'll explain. There's shuttle buses picking you up from the Christian Science Church, which is at the
North.
in North Laguna, and taking you up the hill into the garden.
And it's a city. A city actually owns.
It's a city parcel that was donated by Hortense Miller to the
right.
city.
So you can call the city if you have the city of Laguna Beach. If you
Right,
can't,
City of Laguna Beach Recreation Department.
and they will.
And then there's another event I just wanted to mention. 2 days later, Monday, March 31st, there's an event at the Rivian Theater.
I was going to
That's-
say art
that's-
and activism.
Art and activism, yeah. It's Laguna Beach and the Greenbelt has been designated a historic American landscape by the Department of the Interior and the National Park Service. So that's a pretty big deal, and there'll be 4 of us speaking about that night, that whole process. So,
And-
And again, that's the Rivian Theater.
yeah, you have to go on the Rivian Theater Laguna website. And
March 31st, 6:30 p.m.
And
Right.
does it, Craig? Does it give a contact information on that?
Well, you can go to Laguna Canyon Conservancy and their upcoming events, and all the information's there. That's lagunacanyonconservancy.org.
Okay.
And then you can it'll link you to the Rivian portal, so you can register.
And Rivian, for those people who are out of town that may be listening, Rivian Theater is in Laguna Beach. It was a South Coast theater, and it's on Coast Highway, and they have events all the time there. And, really doing a great community service.
The reason it's called the Rivian Theater is because the theater was vacant for
Way too long.
a couple of decades, and the electric car company
Rivian.
Rivian purchased the theater, and it's used for kind of a showroom for the Rivian vehicles, but they kept a portion of the theater to show films and have
most
public
of it
events.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A good-
they
a
have the
good part of it,
stage and,
yeah.
and all that, and they have events all the time. So it's a really nice thing to
Yeah.
come down. Well, that's great. Bob, you were mentioning some of the shout outs. I don't know, Marlo, if there's anything that's coming up that you feel. Well, the festival's coming up too.
Yeah. No, just I like to plug my friend Nancy England's garden tour.
Yeah, the garden tour is coming up, right?
Oh yeah, garden tour.
That's
The oldest institution, I think, in the city.
right, and that's the Laguna Beach garden
Yeah,
Garden club.
Gate and Garden.
Gate
Gate and
Garden
Garden
tour.
tour.
Yeah.
I forget what it
Yes.
is.
And then getting back to the Suzy Q, where your ESL language is, and I take yoga classes there, and they're expanding. In fact, there was a wonderful article in the paper about the people who have organized it and promoted it and are continuing to work there. They always have new people, but Nadia Baibi is the executive director, and I'm thinking that maybe next month we might ask her to come on and talk about the things that they're doing there, because it is an incredible resource for all ages, not just older people, and they have a lot of classes, but technology, AI. We've had speakers here on AI from there. I get a lot of resources from there. So this is, we still have that sense of community. We still have, and with your help, Bob, and with Marlo's talents, that sense of community and literally from the ground up, and Clay
There
literally
you go.
continues on in spite of the fact that there's constantly change.
We are out of time. We'll be back next month on the second Thursday of the month with another program. And this is artwalkingradio.art. This program can be listened to or download our podcast at artwalking.art is the website. That's artwalking. Yes, it's crazy. It's .art, artwalking.art. And thank you, Bob and Marlo and Leah, for another fabulous show. And thank you for our listeners for being there and the support of the Laguna Beach Beautification Council.
And thank you, Craig, with your wonderful voice. And you can say the goodbye right now.
Adios. We're out of here. Again, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, everybody.
And Leah.
Thank you both.
And Bob.
Thank you. It was great.
It's a pleasure working with you.
KXRN LP, Laguna Niguel, Laguna Beach. KXFM on 104.7. KXFMradio.org.
KXFM 104.7 Laguna Beach Radio.
9 o'clock on a Thursday. This is Grant Owens welcoming you to a special hour of emerging artists and carefully curated classics from around the world. Some classics in this hour by MGMT, Elliott Smith, Twin Shadow, and brand new ones by newcomer Alex Tor.